In 2 days, on the 6th of February, Yugoexport has existed for 10 years. This today, in other words, is an anniversary performance of sorts. My name is Simon Dybbroe Møller, and I'm happy to welcome you to the first Words Now performance of the year 2025. In the Balkans, when you want to hear a song, you hand money to the band leader. If there is blood around, the singer coats one side of the note with it and attaches it to their forehead. The music starts and keeps going until the bill falls off. If there is no blood, you spit. Spit is an inferior glue. You get less music with spit. This is Words Now Yugoexport.
Ooh. Good evening. The silence is good. Yes, congratulations. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I want to thank Simon for inviting me, and I want to also thank the school for inviting me to be here for a year, especially Maj-Britt Borgen, who's been working hard on this administratively. But today I really want to talk to you about a building. We're going to talk about a building and then another building, and then a little bit of a kind of lessons of buildings. And then I'm going to read a little bit. I know I hate reading and I'm not good at it, but this is an oration, so I'm going to try my best. Okay, the building that I really want to talk about is a building which is inside kind of a center of Belgrade, very close to where I lived. My mom still lives there. It's a military headquarters or an army headquarters building designed by Nikola Dubrović. I don't know how many of you know that Yugoslavia existed, but it's a country that kind of became again a country after World War II, and it was formed through anti-fascist struggle, and because it was a communist country, it was kind of naturally, I guess, aligned with the Soviet Union, but because of Stalin, never again after 1948, it broke with the Soviet Union. So it started building its institutions and its kind of buildings in the spirit of the anti-fascist struggle. So it was also completely bombed out during the World War II. So pretty much the entirety of Belgrade needed new buildings. And the military headquarters was a kind of contest. And this architect called Nikola Dubrović won the contest. He was a philosopher. And he really liked Henri Bresson. I don't speak French, you will find this out even more later. And he wanted kind of this, to create a void between two building structures, which he called an exuberant void, which would be able to bring people together. In Yugoslavia, some of the people of Yugoslavia were on the kind of Nazi Axis side, and the others were on partisan communist side, and they had to come together after World War II. So there was an aesthetic that was kind of invented to bring them together and kind of in the spirit of the anti-fascist struggle. So the building has a big boulevard in the center. So there's a big boulevard, and then there's two buildings. There were 6 republics. There was one building on one side which had a step structure like this, step, 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 and the lowest step was at the street. And on the other side, similar and symmetrical, another one like this, step, 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 Alois step. It won like many awards, this building. It was this kind of marvel of Yugoslav modernism. And what was really kind of beautiful about it, it was supposed to kind of bring these people together at the kind of street level. It was like not what you'd expect, like pinkish, cast granite blocks. Very fun. And you were meant to kind of, in Angry Brexon style, be aware of kind of freedom of movement throughout the buildings. So there were long corridors and open spaces within the buildings. Then some of you also know that, like, under pressure and kind of after the death of the kind of the founding ideas of Second Yugoslavia, Josip Broz Tito, in 1980. Let's call him Tito. And let's call the architect Frey, yeah? This country fell apart, and there was a big civil war for many reasons in the 1990s. And then in 1999, there was an aerial bombing by NATO. And lots of kind of Belgrade structures were affected by this. This building also. So, because this building was on a heritage list, because of this kind of marveling and all the awards, what it takes to bomb something out that's on this list is that you have to write to the UN, and you have to approve a building that was protected before to be bombed out, which happened overnight. And then this building was bombed. And it was built in such a way, kind of modular way, that it kind of didn't all go down. Like one side kind of had a big hole in it, and then the other side didn't even fall down. It was also kind of big hole in the center, but the second bomb they put on it didn't explode. So after that date, when I would walk from my house to my gymnasium and part-time job, I always and everybody did this. Everybody would walk a lot faster next to that building because, like, you know, you're like regular, maybe bomb, and then you're like going really quick. What happened after the war is that there were no reparations for the destruction and this bombing. So when I guess then no more Yugoslavia, Serbian government, was still Yugoslavia, but only 2 republics, requested help to remove this bomb, which was semi-irradiated. They were like, no. So since then, since 1999, here's this building with a perhaps unexploded bomb in it. And the way that the city has first dealt with it is that they covered it with a giant billboard. So and on the billboard was this really, really beautiful woman. It was a billboard for the army, because there used to be military headquarters. And she was like saluting, and there were many other beautiful women behind her. And there was some really weird military, I guess, slogan next to it. And a big ad for a company called Yugoexport. And Yugoexport is the only company that survived the civil war, the inflation, and survives to this day because it's a company that fabricates weapons and battle armaments. So Yugoexport was founded right after the World War II, also in 1949, together with a company called Yugoexport. And Yugoexport was meant to take those weapons that were made for Yugoslav National Army and export them. And they also made all kinds of things, like uniforms for the army. And this company later evolved. So from exporting weapons and uniforms for the army, and later on uniforms for the countries that were emancipating from the non-aligned movement, also the weapons for people in Algeria and all the other emancipatory struggles of the non-aligned movement. Yugoexport persisted and still exists and kind of fights on the opposite sides of NATO, it's really funny. And then, but everybody else all the other Yugoslav infrastructures and companies are gone. And this building in the center of Belgrade that I'm talking about, I'm going to continue talking about. But one by one, this big kind of really iconic building of Yugoslavia are falling down, they're gone. And I think last week they tore down the Hotel Yugoslavia, which was also one of the icons. So it's this kind of I live in a world, and I think many people do, where like the evidence of a world that you lived in is slowly disappearing without you turning 90. So it's like you're like trying to explain to people, like I'm trying to explain to you, kind of that it existed and there it was, but like there is very little physical evidence. It's like being surrounded by ghosts or being a ghost, hence the ghost. But there is evidence. Yugoexport became apparel manufacturer, so like from uniforms to workwear to pret-a-porter and then to high fashion. What? Take off his head? Really? What should I do? Okay.
Begin again.
Thank you. So, Yugoexport started producing pret-a-porter in the kind of 1970s, high fashion, but still pret-a-porter for the Yugoslav woman. And for example, we have a wonderful example of Yugoexport skirt, Yugoexport shirt, Yugoexport dress from 1986, over there. But Yugoexport folded in 2003, crushed by heavy international sanctions and 3 million% inflation. Yugoexport first closes like 3,000 boutiques, and then let go of most of its workers onto furloughs. And then in 2013, it started selling off all its infrastructure and privatizing to the highest bidder, highly legally. Maybe we should talk about the inflation. I don't know if you know how kind of Hitler came to power, but like there was this period between World War I and World War II where there was a kind of crazy inflation in Germany, 3,000%. Yugoslavia experienced 3 million% inflation between 1991 and 1995, which meant that every evening somebody would come and call my mom's best friend Boban, who was an illustrator at the Mint, also from which this bank everyone was fired immediately at the beginning of the war. My mom included. She was head of statistics. And, but Boban wasn't, because they needed someone to draw the money, and that meant adding zeros to the money every time the currency would inflate. So like you would add like, it'd be like called at 3 a.m. and like, come, we need to like add 3 zeros and a different picture. And every night, he would, go in, or like every 2 nights, and like add the zeros and print new money, and the bills kept getting more peachy and pastel-y, and like because they were saving ink, because they knew some of the things wouldn't even last a day. And then one day, like it was such a short notice that like they couldn't even find a picture to put on the bill. I think the first bill that was like really tricky was 1 trillion dinar, so they decided instead of putting the young Tesla on the bill, to put the old Tesla on the bill, because he's like thinner in the face. You're allowed to laugh at Tesla. And one night, Boban kind of ran out of historical personages and decided to put the picture of his daughter on the bill. These are the bills that we're spending tonight. He drew his daughter as a young girl, as a young man, as a boy, a girl, and an old man and an old woman. And he called this series of the bills family. And one of the things that happened is that he came to our house that evening with his daughter Mina, who he used for the bill. And he took the bill out of his wallet, and then he took the picture that he used it for, and he said, you can't buy anything with either. And that was kind of the highlight of that evening. During this time, because my mom lost her job, and she was like very honest about money, during this time, everybody in my family took on some kind of a part-time job. My mom did everything, from like cleaning to sex work to like really anything, secretarial work, anything that she could get her hands on. And the official currency during this time was the D-Mark, the German money. So like you would get your like 3 billion dinar that day that you got, and then you would run to this highly illegal street exchanges and exchange it, whatever you can, some small Deutsche Mark, and hope that it's real, and then spend it over the month. And we could live off like 100 Deutsche Mark for like half a year. My part-time job was at the theater. For a year, I cleaned props at the Yugoslav Dramatic Theater. And when I would walk from my house to the Yugoslav Dramatic Theater, I would pass this military headquarters building. And the Yugoslav Dramatic Theater was ran by this guy called Lane Gutovic, who had kind of three, let's call him the MC, yeah? The MC was the director, and he had 3 plays on at the time. One was Oedipus Rex, kind of highly experimental Sophocles version. The other one was Merchant of Venice. And the third one was the Cabaret. And the Cabaret was the funnest because he ran his own cabaret. And it's the first time in my life I saw a man in stiletto heels and stockings. And he had a lot of wisdom to share, but also he was so popular that no one could harm him. So for what someone would at that time be killed or jailed, he could just say out loud because he was just an amazing comedian. And he did that every day. One evening, when I was backstage polishing everything, there were these cops that would come in kind of to warn him. There would be a guy that he insulted on stage before, and they're like, he's coming tonight. So all these people he was also insulting, and kind of high brass of everything, like the American privatizers, the spies, the government officials who were stealing money, everyone was there. And I was looking through this kind of slit in my little area to his office, and there was a guy, 2 guys came into his office. There wasn't a hard fight, they just took him by the hair like this and shook him, probably smashed his head onto something and then left. And he came out, and there's a couple of times that I really felt like this man kind of scared me and changed my life at the same time. So he came out, blood and shit, and he saw kind of how fucked up I thought that was. And then we sat there in silence for a while, and then he said, and I told him, you could have been a lawyer, you can imagine, you can memorize anything, could have been a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant. And he said, well, I was going to be an engineer, but then I found out I'm not, I'm this, And I said, are you going to actually, why did they beat you? And he's like, well, the guy's coming tonight. They're just making sure that I don't say the thing I said yesterday. And I asked, are you going to say it? And he's like, well, it's much better to his face, that's much nicer. And then he said something that stuck with me, which is, I've asked him, why do it? Why do this? Why do people come to the theater? I was very confused, we were being bombed, and people would choose over shelter to come at the same time instead of being safe in a shelter to come to the theater and watch these plays. And he said something fun. He said, the plague is like the theater, and the theater is like the plague. So this is Artaud's, later on I found out Artaud's idea. He said, when there's a plague, like the bubonic plague, and when you see the bubo on your hand, even if you're in the resplendent health, you have a week to live. And because your actions are not motivated in the same way they usually are, gain, profit, for something, Lana said that the MC said that every action after that moment is pure performance because it's gratuitous. It's not motivated by life. The miser gives all his money away. The person who was very chaste fucks the corpses. The very nasty person is very nice to everyone. And everything in between. And he said that's where art lives and where the theater is born. And he said that the whole world has seen a bubo, like we do now, and that we know we have kind of limited time. So everybody runs to the theater because this is the only place where, as a kind of final symptom of the plague, you are like plagued by hallucinations. You know, like you're seeing things that nobody else sees, and you're reacting to things that no one else feels. And he said people come to the theater because it's the safest place. That regular people and regular lives have crisis of meaning, and that art does not. Art is a place where we have no crisis of meaning because everything is tested all the time, perpetual. There's nothing stable, and that's the norm. So people come to the theater because it is the most stable place. And I asked, you know, when these people come next time, they may kill you. And he said, you know, they can't kill me because this is our home. This is safe. This is our rules. And I said, so when they kill you here, it's not going to be real? He's like, no, it's not going to be real. And I'm like, how the fuck is it not going to be real, dude? You're going to be dead, you know? And he said that an action in theater and in the frame of art is much more meaningful than any other action because, let's say, killing. When you kill someone in real life, you have the feelings of a killer, there's an action, and the action's exhausted. The killer, you know, goes to jail or lives on next day. Now the actor has to go to the stage every night and not kill. So like feel the feelings, go through it, and then not do it. And he said that it takes much more restraint for the actor to not commit murder than it takes courage for the killer to commit murder. And he said on stage, all actions are valid because even the worst in us, like murder, has some use. And then he said that even if they come there and kill him, it would not bother him because they're not doing it on stage. He said, for him, nothing meaningless can happen while we're in the frame of art, not even death. So that was one thing that stuck. Another thing that stuck is that he told me about, I think, Robert Desson. Again, French, horrible. A surrealist, maybe someone has heard about him, a surrealist who was born, I think, in 1900, who was part kind of New Duchamp, Breton, like made a script for Man Ray, really good writer, wrote a lot about his kind of peers' work. And he was a palmist, you know, like, is that the word? Someone who loves to read palms. Also in this kind of surrealist practice, he would read people's palms. Palmistry, I think that's what it's called. And of course, during World War II, because he was in the resistance in 1944, he was arrested and taken to Auschwitz and then to Buchenwald. And one night, they came for them, you know, like there was a truck, they were going to take them all to this gas chamber or to be shot, and they put them on this truck, and they were like on the truck, and then they lined people up in front of the gas chamber. There were people with guns around, and then Robert Desson really quickly kind of stood on the side and then started calling people over. And there were soldiers everywhere, and these people waiting to be killed, like 2 a.m. or something. And then he started reading their palms. He's like, oh my God. And the guy would come like, you know, they were like fucked. And he's like, oh my God, like 2 children, wonderful life, lots of abundance, house, fun. And then the next one will come up, oh yeah, beautiful wife, 3 children, lots of money, wonderful life. And then the third person would come and they're like, yeah, really like, you know, maybe not as much money as the other guy, but really good life. You know, going to be an artist, it's like a long lifeline, no cancer. It's going to be a peaceful death. And then everybody started laughing. And then the soldiers started laughing. And they couldn't kill them. They put them back onto the mood has completely shifted, and they put them back on the truck, and everyone survived. Unfortunately, he died from, I think, tuberculosis in the camp, but he didn't die from reading palms. So that was the second thing that really stuck with me from the cabaret. And one of the things that like really, really stuck with me by cleaning these props in the theater every day, which there was one very similar to this because the cabaret had this beautiful werewolf singer, kind of like this. This is for you all. And what I noticed is that when I was sitting in front of the inventory of props, and an actor would come on, and most of them, they would come in costume, and before they were in costume, they were just a person. And then the actor would come in costume, they would hit my booth right before they went on stage, and I would hand them things. Like I would hand Jacosta the clasp that she would place on her toga so that Oedipus can take the clasp off after she was hung herself at the end. You know, he realizes that she's his mother and he's been fucking her a lot. So she hangs herself and he takes out the clasp and she's naked. So I would hand her that. And then Yarmulke for Shylock, the other inverse Merchant of Venice, you know, this beautiful werewolf hands for the cabaret howler, she-wolf. And I realized that a thing was a thing, just like the actor was the actor when they were with me, and then they would cross this threshold and into the frame of art, the frame of theater, and then I realized that the prop wanted to act as much as the actor, and that they were equals on stage. Like all of a sudden, this kind of amazing a life happened to both, and it was an equal kind of life. So I realized that much later that this was the life that art has to offer, and kind of that my job as an artist would be to take this frame, which gives this liveliness and allows this life, and expand it until there is no edge. So I will go back to the building. So there was another building, not so far away, kind of the distance of where I live now, by the Botanical Garden. And is it me? Sorry. There was a building that did not get bombed. So it was a really fucked up, like cheesy neo-Palladian, neoclassical villa built at the beginning of the 20th century, where like this kings and like presidents would be. But what happened to this building is that it housed, since before World War I, an amazing art collection, which I can speak about at some other occasion, how it got there. But they had Poussins, they had Rembrandts, they had Lorentz, like lots of things that is kind of on the World Heritage list, a really big collection. And Slobodan Milošević, let's call him Sven, he was a kind of a problem, and this 1999 bombing was kind of what happened is because of this kind of incredible show of aggression on what today is Kosovo, and the government of Slobodan Milošević, Sven, made that happen. So NATO interfered, and in 1999 bombed both this military headquarters building, which was empty, and then didn't bomb this building where they knew that every night Sven lived. He would go there because he wanted not to die. So while we were getting bombed, people who were like demonstrating against him and everyone else, he was safe because he had a Rembrandt. When you have a Rembrandt in a building, the building is fully protected by UNESCO protections, which means that no army that is in NATO can breach it. And he knew that. So he would do his TV broadcasts from there, and sometimes he would sleep there and so on. And I always wondered, because I knew that while they were bombing, as everyone knew that, kind of, what would Rembrandt say, you know? Would he condone this? And is there something in this kind of a Western image, canon, masterpiece art, something innate in it which will enable this, like which will protect a dictator like this? Is there something wrong in it, like intrinsically? I don't know. But I was really wondering if the artists ever thought that it would be used in such a way. And this is why I really hate eternity, you know? And kind of aspiration to eternity. I like now, live now, you know, live now. So I had a dream a lot of time. This was like, I don't know if it was a dream or a nightmare when I was a teenager, and I still have this dream, which is I walk, like we're being bombed. Slobodan Milosevic is in this house. Sven is at Beli Dvor, which is like the White Castle, which is so funny. In America, it's a food chain, cheapest hamburgers. And like, I have a dream that like I go in and I touch every painting and the painting disappears. And I go to the other painting and it disappears and he's left with no paintings. And that's my dream. But now I walk out of this Palladian villa and I walk down the street and I go to the gymnasium. I pass by the military headquarters, and on the military headquarters there's this, still to this day, third version of the big billboard announcing the existence of Yugoexport. It's a commercial for them and the army at once. And I'm like, is there a bomb in there? Is it radiating on me right now? Immediately after the bombing in 2003, there was a kill switch system. So if somebody was to walk into the building, this huge speaker would come on outside. And because they didn't set it up right, it would go to radio. So like sometimes you would get like turbo folk music, the other times you get like techno. But that's what you heard. This building really had like sound that was emitting from it. Also when it had no sound, it was really like sinister looking. Trees were growing through it, like, I don't know if you watched Andrei Tarkovsky's Solaris, but like, you know, nature will take things back. And then last October, I was walking by the building. I go, every time in Belgrade, I'm like, I go and snap a pic, you know, like it's an image I make. And then, because also I know the woman from the first image and I kind of really like her, and she's still in these images and she's fading, and it's a very good printing technique. They put barely any red in, so like everyone looks great for a long period of time. So over 20, I guess, and some years, like it hasn't, none of these billboards really like look like shit, which is, you know, impressive. And it's a commercial for some printer. And you know, I would send her the picture of how she was. And then I got the news that this building was bought by Jared Kushner. That's happening. So the country that led the bombing effort, the son-in-law of its president has purchased it now, and they're going to tear it down, like the Hotel Yugoslavia. And they're going to extract the bomb because the Serbian government does not have the means. They're going to clean up the site. And they're going to raise a big Trump Tower there with a small museum dedicated to victims of the bombing in 1999 on the ground floor. And Yugoexport, of course, will have probably big offices in there. So that happens slowly but surely. Instead of things disappearing by my finger in my dreams, things are disappearing for reals in real life. One of the things also that I really understand from also the MC's wisdom treasure chest, he told me that I might as well, because I was very insecure, I was good at math and I really liked the theater because for the first time in my life, I had wonderful family life. My mom and my sister were amazing people, and like we had really great warm home, but anything outside was really hazardous. People change, war changes people. And I really felt at home at this theater. I was accepted, I was weird. I even asked what the word perv means because like everybody at school called me a perv for working with the MC because I was so proud. Like that we took a picture together and like it was me sitting on his lap. He's like completely nude on top, like fishnet stockings, stiletto heels. I'm like, everyone's showing pictures from vacation. I couldn't go. So like, I'm like, here's like me and me like the MC, and they're like, pervert, pervert, pervert. And I didn't know what the word meant, even though I was 15 years old, so there you go. And I went home, and my mom wasn't home, so then I went to work, and I'm like, Lana, what's pervert? And he's like, what? Who told you that? And he's like, I was like, the kids at the school. And he's like, listen, if you like it and the other person likes it, there's no such thing. So there's how you explain pervert to your children. But the billboard, yes. Jared Kushner, things are disappearing. Lana said that I was really insecure. I didn't want to know what I want to be. And I liked math. It was easy for me, so I'm like, I'll do math. But I was really, really happy in the theater. And I said, I don't know what I want to be. What should I be? Should I just go like full-on math, law school, things like this? And he's like, well, there are things that are given, and there are things that you cannot have. And like, in this world, there is no promise that anybody can make to you. So you might as well do what you want. And I really and he said, the world is one place. There's no place outside of it. So like, even if you become an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, there's no out of here. There's no out of this. And I guess what I'm trying to say to you is that this is a wonderful place, Denmark. But it's not a part of this world, and there's no outside, there's no out of this, and yeah, things will come here. And for that, you will need a safe place, and you know what the safest place is? Art. Here you go. Make sure to keep this running, Simon, okay? For everyone's sake. But today, in 2 days, is 10 years of Yugoexport, and it's been like an amazing thing for me. Yugoexport completely folded in 2013, and it let go all its workers. It had 3,000 boutiques, and imagine how many workers that was. It had a boutique in Milan, New York, everywhere, and like incredible amount in Yugoslavia. And when they let everybody go, they also started selling off buildings of Yugoexport, and had some most exclusive kind of addresses all around Yugoslavia. And in 2016, on 29th of December, it sold its last building and ceased to exist. And immediately, I wanted to, I'm like, I'm applying to get this name. And I made already in 2015, a corporation in the United States called Yugoexport, an avatar and a copy, because I was following all this. And I wanted my company to be female, or like female leaning. So because the United States with the Citizen United ruling, corporations are people, I'm like, I should incorporate here. And that way my corporation can be female, yes. And it's another thing that I found out when I incorporated it in the United States is that because of its kind of market expansion techniques and violent privatization of things in Serbia, any company operating from the United States would receive 20% off all income tax and free retirement and medical benefits for any woman that it employs over the year of 50, which was really everyone I wanted to employ, because I wanted to employ original Yugoexport workers, which is what I did. Started working with 13 of them through a call, and was able to pay them because I got the same benefits that an American company would get, that I couldn't have done it in Serbia the other way. So I assume this kind of, I guess, avatar became Yugoexport when I took the name of Yugoexport in January 2017, and I was immediately sued by the government saying that I can't do that.
Stop.
Cowardice is the greatest sin.
Begin again.
Okay, so the government sued me, and immediately I went in front of a judge, and I was lucky. The judge was a former Yugoexport customer. She was in her early 70s. And she's like, why you want this name? And I'm like, well, I want to make this artwork, and I want the workers, the original workers from Yugoexport, to create apparel and like for this exhibition. And I've hired 13 workers, and I would like to assume this name. And then the government said, you can't take this name. And the judge said, okay, well, you're employing Yugoexport workers and you're making clothing, so you are Yugoexport, and gave us the name. And then when I incorporated Yugoexport in the United States, I wrote an incorporation document which I filed at Cook County. And every year when we do our annual report and submit taxes, we resubmit the incorporation documents. And I promise this is the only thing that I will read. So now I'm going to read to you the incorporation documents of Yugoexport. And even in this getup, I need glasses. Glasses. It's hard to be a werewolf. It's hard to be a werewolf. I need my right hand. So I'm going to, please suspend disbelief, okay? Just imagine that this is still on. I'll just put both hands on one side. I have changed, even the phone won't recognize me. Okay, cool. There are 6 articles, and some of them are short. Cool. Yugoexport Articles of Incorporation. Article number 1. The Western relation to art comes from its treatment of all things, including humans, as expendable raw material. This is why the West sucks the life out of things and wastes them away. To become art, thing must be drained of all utility and life. Only then the West can step back and look at a thing made solely for contemplation. After laying claim to it, the West seizes and packages an import. It needs the lives of imports because it's in decline. The West nourishes itself on the lives it takes, especially when that life-taking assumes the form of an artwork. This kind of nourishment must be denied. In this way, the entire Western tradition can waste to death if you don't nourish it. Finally, after life leaves it completely, the West can die and become for itself an object of contemplation, an artwork in its own right. Article number 2. Sucking life out of things accumulates. What can we do with all this life in our lungs, We can learn how to surround ourselves with things in the right way, and we can blow life back into things and give them usefulness of life. Article number 3. In the West, history is forged primarily through images. The image is weightless, infinitely thin, hovering above everything. It is reproducible on all channels, allows simultaneous viewing and recall by everyone at all times. It endures despite everything that has happened: wars, holocausts, market crashes, austerity measures, and despite everything that will happen: wars, holocausts, market crashes, austerity measures. The image fixes history. It scans the same for most people, requiring no elaborate narrative or explanation, a perfect and permanent citation. In the East and the Far East, the South and the Deep South, the other side of North and the Far West, imagine that, the other side of North. History is mostly an oral technique. History is a contact sport. It is told and retold, ever-changeable, interpretable. It can be misunderstood or disputed or dismissed. The Western thing or commodity contacts humans by being seen. The flattening of all sense experience to the optical is its founding logic. If we render all history through man's relationship with things, then the desire created by the thing called the Western image requires a clitoral amputation on a hemispheric scale. In a world with too much to look at and to desire, things come and go almost instantly. I think I look like the wolf from the Red Riding Hood now. In a world with too much to look at and to desire, things come and go almost instantly. The speed of the transition from thing to trash syncs up with the loading speed of that thing's image on your cosmopolitan digital advice now artificially intelligent as well. Any culture that cannot recreate itself visually through the dominant image channels will be exterminated. This includes all cultures that pronounce their presence through orality. This presents an impasse. We are sure to lose if we operate within the terms of assessment set by the Western image. How do we play against an opponent who is sure to win? We have to keep another outcome in mind. We must play to lose. I don't know if you've ever seen this kind of, I think it was 1991, battle between Kasparov and Deep Blue Computer. It was kind of the first time there was like a huge computer duel on chess between two entities, a man and a computer. And Kasparov won the first and the second game. And they've asked him, how did he win? And he said, well, I played for another outcome. I was playing to draw, not to win. And I was playing to draw the opponent. So that's what I mean by that. We must play to lose. We must play for another outcome. This position requires the advantages of blindness. In blindness, we cannot immediately tell what is in the room with us and whether it is alive or dead. As the blind feel out their surroundings free from instantaneous visual clues, we come into contact with the features of a thing by testing it without seeing it. Blindness establishes an equivalence, a loyalty, and a familial solidarity between people and things. Being equal with things denies anyone the right to draw the line between what is a human and what is a thing. This kind of administration must be refused. Here, orality thrives. Oral relation is contact, building a bond between people and things. Orality does not provide a unified image, but this image has duration. Telling takes time. Check it out. It just took some time. A longer erotic. Now, we can turn out the lights. Article number 5. Yugoexport. She is incorporated in the United States, where corporations are people and trade deals and guarantee her survival, but not her life. Launched in Paris, France, and headquartered in New York, United States. Incorporation, corporation, CO, and cooperation in a non-Western sense calls for a new economic regime, aesthetic and economic. CO becomes OC. Yugoexport is an oral corporation modeled after the self-managed unofficial organizations and experimental clubs that operated freely within the larger state infrastructures of former Yugoslavia. Since such non-aligned infrastructures have fallen into ruin and abandonment or privatization, the oral corporation assumes the posture of a copy, a managing force mobilizing production. Yugoexport returns under this canon. She is blind and non-aligned, in custom and trade, a living artwork adorned with everyday use. 5.